What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. We is me, Craig Hoffman, him, super producer, Anthony Haney. Anthony, say hi to everyone on this Wednesday if you could.
What's happening?
What's up?
Chilling.
Got water in my bottle. This is a remix, Anthony.
Love that for you, man.
There's some people who got that reference. There's some people that didn't. Today on the show, Ben Standig's going to join us a little less than an hour from right now. Ben is going to be talking about Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, and what else he heard at the NFL owners meetings. We will start letting you hear from Dan Quinn in just a moment. Also today, really terrific article by this newcomer, Anthony. Actually, I don't know if people have heard of this guy. He's not very well. David, Aldridge?
Yeah.
Aldridge is the last name. I said that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just kidding. He's in the Hall of Fame. And David wrote a really terrific article for The Athletic, where he works, about the state of the NBA as part of an ongoing series that they are doing at The Athletic on why the NBA is seemingly dropping in popularity, why some of the ratings are down specifically, but also game attendance, and you have all these teams that are tanking, and is it a crisis for the NBA? And when it comes specifically to style of play, I thought it was really interesting to read David's article, and part of the reason it's great is because he's DA, and he's got quotes from LeBron and Durant and Curry and on down Giannis, like all the Hall of Fame GOAT guys. He talked to him for this story because he's David Aldridge and he himself is a Hall of Famer and he can do that kind of thing. And so really cool article from David that I want to discuss at 5:30. But let's get things started with Dan Quinn and what he had to say yesterday at the NFC Coaches Breakfast. Quinn speaking to a gaggle of reporters. It's just to paint a picture here how these work, having been to them in the past. Basically, each coach sits down at a table. All the local reporters start with their own coach. So there typically is about a 20-25 minutes of this hour. And you literally just sit down with a coach and you have breakfast. Everyone puts their recorders or their phones, or they set up their cameras or whatever down, aim them at the coach. You sit down, you're having some eggs, some bacon, and you fire away at the questions. And after about 20 minutes, maybe you wander off somewhere else and you go get the other coach's sound. So like the last year that I was doing this, or I was on the beat and went to this, was the year that they traded for Alex Smith, or the last one I remember. And so I went over on the AFC morning and was like, I'm going to go talk to Andy Reid about Alex Smith for a little bit, and got a couple of questions in and was able to talk to him. I remember one year going over to Sean McVay's table, the first year that he was in LA, and talking about what he was going to take from Washington. And, it was funny. I remember the Rams PR guy trying to wrap everything up, and Sean's like, no, I know him. Like, Craig, go ahead, which is very nice of Sean. And so you get a chance to talk to not only your head coach, but others about various players. So, like, had I been there this time around, I might have gone to Kyle Shanahan and been like, hey, tell me more about Javon Kinlaw. What didn't work for you guys in San Francisco, and why do you think that it'll work for him in Washington? Why do you think Adam wanted to have him? And so you can do things like that where you get some intel on free agents, on whoever coaches that came over. If you hired a new coach, like if there's someone that maybe worked with Cliff, or someone that worked with Joe Witt Jr., maybe I'd go ask about that. Especially if it was last year's breakfast. So that's how this goes down. But ultimately, most of these are from the local Washington press. And starting off with Dan Quinn being asked about Deebo Samuel and what kind of impact he can have in 2025 on this offense.
Coaching against him, this is an explosive player. Not just the scheme, but after he gets the ball in his hands, sometimes you can tell the toughness of a player with and without the ball. And he has both of those, the explosive nature. So to add a player of his caliber into a tough and strong group, we're really pumped about it.
So as a defensive guy, to defend a guy like that, what were the challenges going against somebody?
Alignments, one, where he could be in the different locations and not just play in traditional spots. So sometimes when you there's a unique player and you're wanting to give special attention, but they're inside, outside, in the backfield, all the spots. And fortunately, also Cliff's really equipped at that too, and how to be unique and feature players, into their best spot. So I'm really pumped to have him.
It's going to be really interesting to see how they deploy him and what he's got left. I mean, there's a chance that Deebo Samuel's cooked. There just is. He's a incredibly physical player. And in that way, the way that running backs tend to have a short shelf life, there should be a healthy fear that Deebo Samuel had a running back shelf life where he was incredible for a long time and he's still got something. And the nature of the wide receiver position lets you maybe get away with a little bit longer, certainly than running back. And he obviously hasn't taken as many hits as a guy like Ezekiel Elliott did early in his career. But that physicality of just not just taking a pounding, but delivering a pounding, running through people all the time. Like, is there a chance that this is done? Of course there's a chance. But I tend to think that last year, Deebo was stuck in a bad situation in San Francisco. It was a weird offensive year for them. They had a bad year overall with health and injury. And 2 years ago, he was still a very, very productive player, like 800 yards receiving, making plays after the catch. And even last year, some of the per catch numbers were still pretty good. It just was harder to get him the ball because all the other dudes were out, and offensively or defensively, teams could focus on Deebo a little bit more because it was mostly him and George Kittle. No Ayuk, no McCaffrey, no some of the other guys that they've had in the past. So it's going to be fun to watch Cliff use him, and obviously part of that is an easy button for Jaden Daniels. Last bite we'll play for you before we take a quick break, come back and let you hear more about the offensive line and some very interesting things DQ had to say about that, is what Quinn wants to see from Daniels in year 2. He was great in year 1. If he just does that for the rest of his career, Jaden Daniels probably go to the Hall of Fame. But what can he actually improve on in year 2?
There's a lot that all of us, and we call them work-offs. These are the things that we want to get better. So for him, some of the technique ones that, like a lot of quarterbacks, is footwork and, body position of where to go, where to throw. We thought he made a lot of improvement extending plays early on in the season. They were extending to run, and then now they got extending to throw the ball down the field. So having that balance of doing both of those, that's a big deal. But for him, the footwork side of things, that's one that I know he's going to dig in hard on this year. I think if you'd ask a lot of quarterbacks, that's where the power comes from. That's where it's at. So, but that's one for sure that he's digging in.
The footwork specifically for Daniels, where I think there's the biggest room for improvement, is movement within the pocket. It's not because the thing about him is his release is so quick, and his ability to get the ball out on time is so good. So it's not like get the ball, getting your drop, hit the back foot, throw. Like, that stuff's awesome. Even some of the quick stuff, the screens, like he's able to get his feet set and get the ball out quickly. His off-platform stuff was really good last year. So his ability to get his body in a good position to throw, very, very good, and probably better than expected in year 1. Where there's still a lot of room for improvement, for as mobile as he is, for as good as he is at getting out of the pocket, can he move subtly within it to keep a good base underneath him and create a little bit of space and throw, like the greats have done? Guys like Brady were the best at it. Burrow's unbelievable at it. There's other guys who are really good at manipulating the pocket without escaping it. And I think that's the area probably where Quinn is talking about, that there's a lot of room to grow for Daniels in the footwork. But when you're as good at escaping it as him, you just be like, why would I stay in here when I can get out? And that obviously was more than successful in year 1. When we get back, though, maybe he doesn't have to move around quite as much because the offensive line is better in year 2 for him than it was in year 1. You got to hear what DQ had to say about the shifting pieces up in front of Jaden Daniels next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Let's continue hearing from Dan Quinn. Yesterday, NFC Coaches Breakfast. Plenty of interesting things that he had to say, including talking about the offensive line. And he talked about some of the changes and then just talked about kind of the depth of this group. And I think both are worth listening. So first and foremost, obviously, Laremy Tunsil's the headliner. But what else is going to change and on the offensive line? And where do we look at with the depth of that group?
Talk about the line of scrimmage. You also had Laremy Tunsil. What does that do for the team, and what does that do for the rest of the O-line and Brandon Coleman?
Yeah, the addition of Laremy and playing out at tackle, he's had such experience and done it at a high level. And so when you can add somebody of that caliber, that's a big deal. And so adding him right now into our mix, we're really pumped to have him. We can't wait to get him here. It's going to be a fun group to coach. These are like of the guys we've added. Adam and his staff did an excellent job. We were very specific about the commanders and who we wanted to have as part of this, and so he's an ideal fit for us.
And then for Coleman, who rookie season gave you a lot at that spot.
Yep.
Probably moving now.
Yes.
What's the plan there?
He'll go to the right side.
Tackle.
Yes.
Wiley kick in for Cosby.
Yeah, you're getting way too far down the line. We got a lot of practice to go still. So, but yeah, he'll go on the right side. But as far as tackle or guard, we'll start at tackle. That's where he's got lots of experience at, and we'll go there first. So that's the plan.
I think I'm glad JP asked. Two, I'm glad that Dan Quinn has a great sense of humor because this is this thing that we do this time of year because we have nothing else to do. Well, this guy could go here, this guy could go here, and we swing around. And how do we get our best five on the? They don't know yet. One, we don't know each player's current form. Like, what does Andrew Wiley look like in 2025? What does Brandon Coleman look like in 2025? What does, when we get closer to the season, how far away is Sam Cosby? How does that affect the decision-making of, we probably want to start Brandon Coleman at right guard, actually, but we know eventually when Sam comes back, we're going to kick him inside, and he's actually only 2 weeks away. So, do we want to waste that time? Do we want to put him at left guard? It's too early. They don't have to make a decision yet because they don't have all the data. But I think it's really great by the same token that DQ did expand a little bit and acknowledge that there are multiple possibilities here. This is someone who is going to start at right tackle. But Brandon Sheriff also started at right tackle. And 2 practices in the training camp, he was a right guard. And he's been a right guard ever since. And he's been a borderline all-pro player at that position for a lot of years. Obviously, he's declined here later in his career and Jacksonville and the whole deal. But he was an awesome right guard for his entire time in Washington and for much of his time in Jacksonville. Maybe that's Brandon Coleman's future. And if he can play at Brandon Sheriff's level, like Brandon Sheriff was a top 5 pick, Brandon Coleman was a 3rd-round pick. That's a hell of a pick by Adam Peters. That's how it turns out. But he also might work out at right tackle. But I think the thing is he hasn't played very much on the right side at all. So, there's a chance that he doesn't work out over there. And, if he winds up as a left guard, like that might not be a bad idea either because it's not quite switch hitting in baseball where your hands are in a different position. I mean, they are, but it's not quite that much of a flipping around, but it is very similar where your kick step is the other way. Your outside hand is not your inside hand. Your inside hand is not your outside hand. You practice that punch. You practice the different ways you engage and disengage in a block and in a block shed disengage from a block shed in a bunch of different ways, all go in one direction. Your eyes are trained to go to your right inside to scan versus to your left outside. Now that switches. If you're watching for a twist or a stunt coming from your inside, that inside is now another side. And if he doesn't take to that stuff, switching him back to the left side and playing him at guard might be the better outcome. By the same token, Wiley's going to have to figure out that stuff too. He was a pretty decent guard in Kansas City for a couple of years, but they moved him out to tackle. He hasn't played guard in a long time. Does he readapt to that position? Do they want to? Do they rather him have swing tackle capabilities? And the answer is right now, they just want to keep their options open. And I think that is the expected answer, but I'm glad that DQ had the chuckle with it Because if they made a decision, okay, fine. And I'm sure that they have a plan A. And I think that's the other thing too, right? They don't necessarily want to give away plan A just for the narrative purposes of, okay, well, if we know that it goes sideways and all of a sudden we're on plan B or C, like they don't want to have it announced that. But it's a little different being like, yeah, we're going to start him here and we'll see what happens. And that's, where I think a lot of the headlines were written as he's going to play right tackle. It's like, no, we're going to start him at right tackle and then we'll figure out what happens. And maybe that changes in the draft too. What happens if the best player available at 29 for them by far is a tackle? What happens if they have a top 12 grade on Josh Simmons, the tackle out of Ohio State, and they're more comfortable with the medical than other teams are, and all of a sudden Simmons is available at 29, and they're like, this dude's the best player on our board by a mile. They just draft him and put him at right tackle and say, you'll replace Tunsil when Tunsil's done here in a couple years and Tristan Wirfs it. You could. And by the way, Simmons might not be ready for the season because maybe his knee injury is not quite back yet, although he's moving around at his pro day a little bit. So these are the things that they're considering. There's a lot to still happen, but it's good to know kind of where the wheels are going to, at least where they're going to be start to set in motion. Same thing can be said on the D-line. A lot of changes there, a lot of options there. Here's Dan Quinn.
At a couple of the spots, I'm really excited about competition. And it really does, kind of foster like an environment where it's so competitive and you're pushing for it. The best teams, that I've been a part of had that. And at the line of scrimmage, that's so important of how we want to go and how we want to play. And so I love the guys that we've added. We certainly did a lot of research on who they were, not just as ball players, but as men and teammates. And so that was really important for us. How important our locker room and, our attitude and who we are and what we want to be. That was really an important part of it too, Nikki. So we're excited to add these guys to the crew, and I'm really excited, just in a few weeks we get to, see everybody again, and the process of bringing new players and onboarding them with the current veterans, that's an important step. And there's two parts to it. One with the veterans who are new, and then the second lap will be, with the rookies, in May. And so both of those processes are important to onboard them as quickly as they can, to understand our standards, the culture, how we want to do things. So we're pumped to have them.
And I think there's a lot of guys that have been brought in that are not only interesting football players, but terrific culture guys. And that is one thing I'll say about, God, am I going to go down this road again? Yeah, I am. I'm already here. Like the John Allen experience, and I hate to feel like I'm bashing John because I don't think John's a bad dude. I just think that there were I think he and DQ and the new regime were on different pages. Both of those pages can be correct in the certain circumstances, but considering Dan was trying to bring in something new, having the incumbency of someone like John perhaps caused some tension. And I also, frankly, on a much more critical note, a little less gray area, like a couple years ago when Chase Young and Montez Sweat and all those guys were here and the four of them were playing together and they were undisciplined as hell and doing all kinds of crazy stuff on the field. And John, and is punching Duran and like all the stuff that went down here. It's not like that D-line room has been a model of consistency and a model of great effort and a model of what it now means to be a commander. And Javon Kinlaw, while he's got his issues as a player, based off what we've seen so far in his career, some of the troubles stopping the run, etc., like that dude plays his face off every single snap. We saw what Johnny Newton did last year and immediately why they like him so much because he plays so hard. Guys like Sheldon Day, they're limited as players, but there's a standard there. And a guy like Dietrich Wise coming in from New England, like that dude is going to play hard. They're looking for a certain tone to be set. And I think what we saw last year is that puts a really high floor under your team because you can accomplish a lot in the NFL by playing hard. And so I'm excited for this group. Well, I 100% acknowledge it needs more talent. I do not expect this to be an elite D-line group the way it is currently constituted. And frankly, I don't expect it to be with anybody they could draft either. Like a Donovan Ezaraku would be amazing because I think he can add some real pass rush juice from day one. But realistically, like how good are they going to be this year? If they can play together and guys like Day go from like major rotation players to minor rotation players. And, a guy like Wise can be a better edge setter, and Cleveland Ferrell goes from starter to backup and things like that. Like, I think they can be better than last year, but they're not going to be elite. But I do think it's an exciting group in a certain way because there is that kind of floor underneath them. As terms of what that means in wins and losses, Vegas has spoken. Pre-draft, 10.5 is the number. 10.5 wins for the Commanders in 2025 for Vegas. And we were curious to ask you at 301-230-0980. This was going to be our Vibe Check Tuesday yesterday, but the Buzz Williams news knocked that to today. So a Vibe Check Wednesday at 301-230-0980. Over under 10.5 wins for the Commanders in 2025. We'll take your preliminary bets, but only metaphorically. We're not actually taking your money. I'm not a radio bookie. But we will take your calls next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. The Commanders are listed in Vegas at 10.5 for their over-under. This came out last week. I believe FanDuel put them out, which technically is. Now, we say in Vegas, Anthony, but Anthony's on phone duty because people are calling at 301-230-0980. But we say Vegas has them at this. Sportsbooks aren't just in Las Vegas anymore. Sportsbooks are everywhere. I got a sports book right here on my phone. Like, why do we say in Vegas? I just old habits die hard.
I guess that's where everybody used to go to bet, you know?
Also, isn't the person on line 2 banned from the show?
Possibly.
You know who you are. Just hang up now. I ain't getting to you. We're going to go to start things off with someone who's specifically not banned, even though we've had our fun quarrels over the years. Gary's in Upper Marlboro. Gary, what's up, man? How are you?
Hi, Craig. How you doing, man?
Doing well. All right, so over under 10.5 for the Commanders in 2025. As the other person did, by the way, hang up because they know who they are. But Gary, 10.5. They earned it, man. They earned it. 10.5 is the over/under for Vegas this year, or for your sports book in your hand and your phone. You going over/under for the Commanders?
Look, Craig, I'm going to under, and 10. If they win 10 games, they're under. Okay, and I think that's their ceiling this year. I'm not that impressed with the offseason. Okay, up to this point, I'm not that impressed specifically on the defensive side of the ball. Okay, they came in with $90 million in cap space, and everyone knew that side of the ball was the weak link. And they have not added one, in my opinion, ascending player on the defense. Now, you could argue with, Ken Law, you can argue that. But all these other guys are guys that you know exactly what you're going to get. They're either on, older. They're not one Pro Bowl has been added to that defense. And I think that's a problem. I mean, you come in $90 million and everybody during the season, everybody wants to come to Washington in the off season, and we have $90 million and we don't add one blue chip player to the defense. I have a problem with that.
So hold on, Gary. Let me stop you right there and ask you a question, because first of all, just so we're clear here, I would also go under with the bet on 10. I disagree with you that that's their ceiling, but I would also bet under on 10. So I don't think you're crazy here. My question would simply be, who's the blue chipper that they didn't add that you're like, that guy was available for them? Because I think the problem that I have with that criticism is I don't know there was anybody to spend that money on, but who am I apparently forgetting?
Well, I don't have anybody specific in mind right now, but I looked at the top 100 from ESPN, CBS, and one other outlet, and they didn't add one single guy in those outlets that were top 100 on defense. There were several top 100.
Ken Law was in the top 100 on those lists for sure. Not necessarily near the top of it, but he was on the list, probably in like the 40s, 50s, 60s, depending on which list it is. But Milton Williams was not going to be someone they spent a bunch they were not going to win the bidding war for Milton Williams. It was not worth it for them. I think the one guy that I would have loved to see them sign is Josh Sweat. I don't think Josh Sweat wanted to come here over Arizona where he could go reunite with Jonathan Gannon. So, I think the problem is, ideally, Gary, I agree with you. They would have spent money. But as we've talked about a lot, there actually weren't that many good players available. It was a bad year to have cap space in a lot of ways. And I think that, are you accurate in saying that they did not add a blue chip player, they did not add a Pro Bowl? Absolutely, 1,000% correct. I still think they got better ever so slightly defensively because they bring in a guy like Dietrich Wise who knocks Cleveland Ferrell from starter to backup. And Cleveland Ferrell's not great, but if he's a backup as opposed to a starter, and he was your starter last year, by nature you've gotten better, and I feel like they did that at a couple of different positions.
Okay, I can agree with that to some extent, but I think the optimism going into this year with all the cap space and, reporters saying players wanted to come to Washington, and I just don't think they got out of this offseason what I was anticipating. And I think that I'm not so sure that we're that much better on defense. And after you give up 55 points in the NFC Championship, I would hope that we would have been a little bit better. And I think if we had a crystal ball 2 weeks before free agency and we hung these guys out there on who they put on the defense, I think most of the fan base would have been upset. And so that's why I think 10 is a reasonable number for them.
I think like the conclusion is fair because I do agree with you. They didn't really get a ton better on defense. They're going to play a tougher schedule. I think landing on 10 is totally reasonable. I just think that and maybe we, the media, did a bad job here, or maybe fans just got out over their skis. Fans have never done that before, Gary. But fans got out over their skis, seeing the cap space, and didn't look. It's like walking into the grocery store with an ungodly amount of money, and you walk in and the shelves are empty. Like, what are you supposed to buy? And that's unfortunately what free agency was this year. So I appreciate the call. Thoughtful as always, Gary. Really appreciate it. Let's go to our guy Ford, and then we might have an appeal of our caller ban. We're gonna take care of that next, but we're gonna start off with Ford. Ford, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show. Over under 10.5 wins, my guy.
Hey, Craig. I'm going barely over. 11-6 has been my call, and here's my rationale. I think between the AFC West and the NFC North and the Eagles twice, I think we split, right, 5-5, and then probably lose one along the way to either Seattle or Atlanta. I think we should take care of business. I mean, we're going to be better, but our schedule is going to be tougher. But I don't know how much money I would put on my sports book or in Vegas, but 11-6 is what I'll go with. And I wanted to ask you another question that's Commander related. Then I'll hang up and listen.
Sure.
I haven't heard much talk about Will Harris and his potential impact on Marshawn Lattimore since they were teammates in New Orleans. But maybe. I've heard you reference that maybe Jonathan Jones could be a calming force for Lattimore a little bit. One of Will Harris, maybe he was brought in by us for that reason as well. I wanted to get your thoughts about that.
That's a great question, Ford. And I haven't I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have a solid answer on it because I don't. I don't know their relationship. I do know they played together last year. Harris was in Detroit previously, so they didn't cross a ton. But Will Harris, I think, is a really highly competitive guy who plays with a certain fire, and I think Marshawn Lattimore is going to respect that. I do think a guy like Jones, who has Super Bowl rings, is going to probably be able to have a little bit different of a relationship. I mean, Lattimore's been in this league a long time at this point. He's not a young player, and so there just aren't as many dudes who are older that he can look at and be like, oh, that dude's seen more than me. And so I think that plus the leadership and kind of the respect that Jonathan Jones has might be able to be a good force in that room. I certainly don't think Will Harris would be a bad guy to have around, and he's obviously knows Marshawn a little bit, went through training camp with him last year, went through the offseason with him last year. But I'm not going to pretend to know that they have some great, super close relationship, and they didn't play together that long. But certainly I think one of the things that is beneficial purely on the field is the less new communication issues you have, the better. And so if Harris and Lattimore made some mistakes last year in New Orleans and the other defense that don't necessarily translate over to this one because they've dealt with that thing before, they know how each other plays and put all that practice time in, maybe there's some small boost that you get from that continuity. All right, 301-230-0980. Last week we had to ban someone from the show. They would like to apologize and appeal their ban. We'll get to that, plus more calls on your over-under 10.5 next on the Team 980. if we got time, we will get back to some of the over/under 10.5 calls here in a second on the Hoffman Show. Ben Standig going to join us no matter what coming up at 5 o'clock. But apparently we have a bit of show business to take care of first, Anthony. Are we ready? Are we ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, last week, Big Tony, who's been calling this station for a long time, called the show and got real reckless and started saying that he would dunk on NBA players. Is almost sounds like what had happened. Maybe I'm misrepresenting this. Well, but Big Tony, by the end of that call, got himself banned from the show. And Big Tony has called in. And Big Tony, I've been told that you would like to apologize and get yourself unbanned from the show.
What's going on, crazy leg Craig Hoffman and my main man, Anthony Hoffman? Hey, look here, Slim. No, I apologize. I might have had a sip or 3 or 5 or 9, but no. Serge Dricker was the dude that went to Carolina. It was probably about when I come out of high school, 87. So it probably been about 88 to like 92. He was at Carolina. The Bama was 7-2, and I stuck it on him. No joke.
That's
I did it.
Credit to you.
Correct.
Credit to you. But
okay, anyway, but there's no but. So on his schedule thing.
That's it. That's all you're going. No. We can't be apologizing. Is not. I'm gonna set the story straight about what I did in 1987 and not acknowledge any of the other stuff because I was getting drunk and calling the radio station. We can't be drunk calling the radio station.
I didn't say I was drunk. I said I may have had a sip or 2, but no. Anyway, no. I mean, what you were saying is legit, but now I'm 55, man. I can't do nothing to nobody. I mean, I can't do nothing to Anthony except post him up and hit him with a jump hook. I mean, anyway, on his schedule thing.
No. We're not interested in your thoughts on the schedule, Tony. We're interested in your apology. I haven't even made a decision whether you're unbanned or not yet. This is your appeal process. Okay. You're not getting in. Plus, on the last time you called in, you tried to get like Steelers takes in on the end, and we were talking about like basketball stuff. So like, nah. Right now, you're gonna need more evidence, bro. Like you ain't even off the schneid yet. So don't be trying to hit me with the take right now.
All right. So the evidence is I stuck it on him, and like I told Anthony. I sent Anthony the text of all the dudes that I used to train. So I've been dunked on by Alonzo, Ewing, just all the basketball players. I will text Anthony the trainer's name, which I showed him all this stuff last week. Mm-hmm. Anthony, I don't know if you showed Craig because I told you to show Craig that all the people that I used to train with. And, yes, I've been dunked on my head. No, I've never dunked on those official NBA players. And Serge, I don't even think Serge made it to the league. He might have been there for a cup of coffee. But can we get to the schedule thing?
No, Tony.
No, Craig.
Tony, here's what I'm going to say.
I'm apologizing for coming on your show, disrespecting you, or I didn't disrespect you. I was just saying what I did back in my day. And how about that? Anthony, I think that's good.
Here's my ruling. Tony, I will unban you moving forward, but I don't care about your take today. So you're going to have to – your time served, your punishment is you don't get to unload a take today, but you can call back in the future. Tony, that my decision is final. Thank you. Goodbye. Just don't sip and call the radio station. Anthony, how do we feel about my attempt at justice?
Hey, I'm glad Big Tony's allowed to call back into the show.
Also, how's Big Tony got your number?
I think Doc Walker, to be honest.
Oh, that explains a lot. All right. This is just regular Tony. He gets to get a take off on the 10.5 over-under bit. Tony, thanks for calling and sitting through that mess. You're on the Hoffman Show. Over-under 10.5 wins for the Commanders in 2025.
My over is 11. And the only reason it's not more is because of the schedule that the Commanders will have to face next year because of their success this year in 24, or the past year in 24. I want to say that I am disappointed. Well, I'm not saying, but let me take that back. It's not that I'm disappointed. I think that the Commanders, they made a lot of moves this offseason, which were good. They made some, which, well, we have to wait to see how they play out.
Of course.
However, I would like for the Commanders to have, or to not to have, but to draft a wide receiver who could grow with Jaden Daniels.
And there's a very good chance they can do that. Tony, thanks for the call. I mean, there is this is an interesting group of receivers because there's like some guys. I mean, at the top, there's not anyone close to what was last year, unless you believe that Travis Hunter is going to play receiver and he's a different kind of player than like Malik Neighbors was, or Rome Odunze was, or Marvin Harrison Jr. was. I think Neighbors early on, the returns are the highest on him. And there's a chance that Hunter's every bit as good, even though he does it differently. He's a little more like nuanced as a route runner and has some like Jamar Chase to him, but he doesn't have the explosive speed like Chase or Malik Neighbors has vertically down the field. Like he's not a 4.3 guy. He's probably a 4.4 guy, which is not slow, but is very different than that kind of explosive vertical speed. Tet McMillan's next, probably, but it might be Matthew Golden. Both of those guys have their flaws. Then there's guys like A.O. Minor out of Stanford, who some people think could be a first rounder and some people think is a fifth rounder. So there's a ton of variety in receivers, and there's these guys like later in the draft that have some size and some speed, but that's pretty much all they do. They're one-trick ponies. I would assume that they get someone. The most important receiver for the Commanders to grow moving forward is probably going to be Luke McCaffrey. He was the 100th overall pick, I believe it was last year. They got to get more out of him in 2025. Let's wrap things up with Noel in Chicago. Noel, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show. Over, under 10.5 wins for the Commanders in 25.
Hey, Craig. I'm going to go over barely at like 11. I know it's probably the common answer you've been hearing today. I'd say the ceiling is potentially 14, as far as 14 wins. And, you made a good point as far as like potentially adding more weapons in the draft, maybe on offensively with a wide out and then even a running back. I really think it's going to come down to, in a lot of ways, to Marshawn Lattimore. It's going to come down to Dietrich Weiss and Kinlaw, like some of these acquisitions in the offseason, to just see how much better the defense is going to be at, especially in year 2 of the regime with Dan Quinn and his system. I hope that the back end and all the corners are able to hold up better. Marshawn, I know, struggled with A.J. Brown and some of the better receivers in the league. And being in this second year, I think he'll do better. At least he better. That's really where I'm at, man. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility with the draft, and I'm excited about it. So
totally agree. And Noel, thanks for the call as always. I think that they've set themselves up well going to the draft. We've had that discussion a lot. We'll continue to have it until the draft. But I also think it's worth pointing out, for all the consternation about the defense, which I don't think is invalid. And by the way, sometimes corners hit a cliff, man. And if Marshawn's on the wrong side of the cliff, this team is. It's a yikes territory, but they still have the contract flexibility that they can get out of his deal after next year. So I don't expect them to give him an extension before he proves something. But we'll see. Sometimes NFL teams do silly stuff, and maybe to get the best out of him, they think they've got to give him some kind of guaranteed money. At least, I mean, you can guarantee whatever you want for 25, but for 26, please don't add any money to this contract. Point is, though, offensively, I still maintain this. Who acquired a better player the entire offseason than Laramie Tunsil? No one. So they took their one quasi-weakness offensively, their offensive line personnel-wise, which they still made work at a high level last year. They got one of the best dudes in the league. Jaden is now going to be in year 2. They added Debo, who should give you something. Noah Brown gave you a pretty good production last year. He's back. It's very, very interesting to see what they can do here offensively, especially if they add 1 or 2 more pieces in the draft. They bring back Zach. They bring back Bates, so they've got their blocking stuff. We'll see if Sinnott can grow in year 2. We'll see if McCaffrey can grow in year 2. But this offense was a top 5 offense last year, and they added arguably the best left tackle in the league. That's probably worth something. For people that are saying, 10 or 11, that's why the number's 10.5. Vegas, they don't air condition the desert because they lose, even though a lot of the sports books are now now on your phone. When we get back, Ben Standig joins us. What did he think was the most important thing Dan Quinn said at the coaches' breakfast yesterday? Plus, we'll go mock drafting with Ben, who's very good at it as well, here on the Team 980. You know, Anthony, you might have to pull that one from the rotation because while we loved our time when Ben Standig was basically a co-host of the show once a week, things have changed. Luckily for all of us, for the better. There's plenty of magic being made by the team that we spend our time with now.
You're right. We might have to pull it.
Might have to. You know what we are going to do, though? We're going to talk to Ben Standig.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Ben Standig, Commanders beat reporter for The Athletic, back from the NFL owners meetings. How are you, my friend?
Craig, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm not going to lie. It's I got used to 80 degrees for a couple of days, so this is better than what it was a couple months ago here, but not 80 degrees.
No, I was definitely very not happy with the fact that it was like 40 degrees this morning, especially because I had to go help a friend of ours move some furniture this morning. That everyone's like, "Oh, you're so fit," and I'm like, "Yeah, it means you're the person that people call to help you move furniture." But no, I was happy to help move this thing, and I was gonna bike over to their house. I walked outside and was like, looked at my wife. I was like, "Can you drop me off because it's on the way to work?" Because it's too cold. So I'd imagine going from the 80 degrees, nicest hotel you'll go to all year for the owners meetings back to whatever greeted you this morning outside your home was not very pleasant.
It was not, but I think more importantly, what friends do you have that are using you to move stuff? Don't people use movers anymore? What are we doing?
No, they had to. They're getting they have movers coming because they're in the process of selling their house and they have to redo their stairs first. So it's like one of those situations, and it was just one dresser that needed to get moved down a couple flights, and we only took a small chunk out of their wall, so it was fine.
Fair enough.
You get what you pay for, and apparently my price should have gone down. Anyway, Ben, more importantly, you heard not only Dan Quinn, but Adam Peters speak the last couple of days. DQ was DQ, and there's definitely interesting stuff to get into substantively there. But I feel like that was the most relaxed and most verbose we've heard Adam Peters speak in his entire time as the GM of the Commanders. How do you feel like he's settling into his second off season here, and what did you take away from Peters before we get to some of the things that Quinn said?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on that. He in the midst of his conversation with us, he to sort of made a random joke about something he had just said, and he put a reporter quasi on the spot about it. And just the fact that he was able to sort of make a joke in the middle of it, not that he was like the most stiff guy ever, but just like it was a sign of some relaxation. And yeah, I mean, I think that he in some of his responses gave some decent answers, not a ton of specifics, but, he didn't just simply brush everything off and say, well, we're not going to talk about that or what have you. So, yeah, I thought he was pretty good. I mean, I think that, the Terry McLaurin stuff, in terms of possibly getting an extension, again, not a real surprise, but, he said, hey, yeah, we've had some dialogue, not going to get into any of it and preliminary things like that, but, just simply acknowledging that's the thing. I mean, I believe I asked that at the combine and didn't really get anywhere. So, yeah, I think there's some stuff like that made some sense. He talked a bit about Javon Kinlaw and the choice there and Debo as well. So, I thought he was, I thought he was good. I mean, relatively speaking, we can always get some more specifics out of them, but, yeah, I thought he was pretty good.
I will say, listening to him talk about Kinlaw, that is like one of the most animated I've ever heard him. He clearly loves Javon Kinlaw. How much do you think he's involved in whatever the plan for Kinlaw will be, or is he just like, this dude's a rare piece of clay, DQ, I trust you to mold it?
Yeah, probably the latter. It does feel like, look, obviously as a general manager, when it comes to making picks or signings, the buck stops with him. But this one feels like the most sort of him going out on a limb to say, I got this, look, I mean, Javon Kinlaw is the guy he drafted in the first round back in 2020. He's a massive human being. It wasn't a wrong pick at the time, but then Kinlaw suffered a significant knee injury in 2021. He basically missed 2 years of football. He has come back the last 2 seasons and played all 34 games. He was able to, and he started all 17 last year for the Jets, but he hasn't, still come close to reaching the heights that I think people thought were conceivable. And he's basically saying, Peters, that is saying, I think that's still in here. I'm not right. This is not a lost cause. He's still, got a lot of the physical traits. He obviously knows the guy. So it does feel like this is the one where he is putting his neck out a bit more because it was definitely, I think we all can agree, a bit of a surprise, a curious signing in terms of the years and the money for a guy that, wasn't typically being viewed as a sought after free agent. And not that the 3 years, 45 million, 30 guaranteed is, even if it doesn't work, it's not going to be some major blight on his resume. But at the same point, it was like the one, other than the two trades, it was the one free agent move that they went and did, some real, gave some real assets, and a bit of a surprise, but he obviously sees the plan, and, he gets benefit of the doubt, right, for the most part at this stage, and we'll see what happens.
Ben Standig with us from The Athletic here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, their Commanders beat reporter. DQ talked a little bit more about some of the alignments that we've all been questioning. JP kind of did the same thing that I feel like my comments section is sometimes. Like, oh, where's this guy going to play? Where's Coleman going to play? And then is this guy going to slide here? How much do you think that they've really thought about that with this and are playing coy versus, no, they're really just going to try a bunch of stuff? Like, have you been able to gather any extra intel beyond the things that Quinn said directly yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you always have to have a plan. They emphasized competition last year. One of the reasons they said why they didn't just tell us that Jaden Daniels was going to start all along was, if you're going to just say he's the starter and erase any notion of competition, even if it's minimal, then, why aren't you doing that for all the other spots? So I do think they want to keep that up, and have that be a real thing. And in terms of the offensive line, I mean, my view has all along has been presumably they're going to put him at right tackle, and that Coleman is going to be, it's his job to lose or to win, however you want to kind of look at that, with Andrew Wiley, though, still there. I mean, Andrew Wiley's been the starter the last couple of years. So if Coleman, has a tough off-season training camp, then, they can go back to Wiley and it's not set in stone. But, I'm sure they, did all this with the belief that, hey, we believe Coleman could be a left tackle. Therefore, we believe he could be a tackle. So now we're going to put him on the right side. And, I think this is a potentially seismic opportunity for them, because if he's able to, he was okay last year, but, gave up a fair amount of sacks and pressures. And, if he's able to secure the right tackle spot with Tunsil around for the next few years, I mean, this offensive line could really jump significantly from where it was, in the last year under Ron Rivera. So I think it's a pretty significant move. But, in general, I think with all these moves, they have to have some idea what the plan, like, same thing with cornerback, right? Quinn's saying Jonathan Jones, they can play him inside or outside, and, they're going to look at Sanderson sort of the same way. But it's hard to believe that you're not saying, okay, we believe that Sanderson is going to do X, and how do we complement that, So I think they always have a plan, but, they like options, and, they're just not using the term position flex the way that somebody else may have. And I think from that, therefore, it's not like we're not getting beat over the head with a term, but they are kind of saying the same thing. We want to have guys that can do different things, but we have a plan as to what we think that's going to look like. But we're giving ourselves outs, and in terms of case injuries or just things don't work out.
Ben Standig with us here on the Hoffman Show. Last thing for you, Ben, off the board from the owners' meetings. You are renowned, sir, for your correct mock drafting over the years. And so I want to quickly just ask you one thing about the mock that you did last week. You do have the Commanders trading back like many fans want, although it's not necessarily in the way that a lot of people think that'll go down. A lot of people are like, oh, some team will want a quarterback and want to trade up. And you actually have a team trading up way ahead of the Commanders, up to 24 to take Jackson Dart. Like, how realistic is, like, obviously the Commanders are going to want to trade down because they'd like to recoup the draft capital. And we all know that at that point in the draft, there's probably not a whole bunch of difference between the caliber of player you'll get at 29 versus the one that you'll get at 34, 35. So how many teams do you think are going to be looking to trade up, whether it's for a quarterback or something else, that you feel like this is a plausible situation? And kind of as part B related of that question, like, how high do you think some of these, like the Giants, et cetera, will think they have to go to ensure that they get the third quarterback off the board? And in other words, is Washington going to be too late for that in the first round?
Yeah, no, I think they definitely could be too late in the first round if we're just talking about a quarterback. I think a lot's going to depend on what happens with Shedeur Sanders. I mean, obviously he could go off the board at 2 or 3, but if he gets past the Browns and the Giants, then I don't know what where he goes. I know a lot of people point to the Steelers at 21. For the moment, they don't have much of a quarterback beyond Mason Rudolph. And even if they sign Aaron Rodgers, which is still the assumption, and he's obviously not a long-term plan. But we'll see. It feels to me like Pittsburgh, is trying to be aggressive now. They didn't make that DK Metcalf trade for 3 years from now. So, are they going to use a first-round pick? They don't have a second on a quarterback. I don't know. So if they don't, now all of a sudden, Sanders and Dart are in there in the 20s, and things could get more interesting. But if Sanders is gone before Pittsburgh, then you got to look at Pittsburgh at 21 as possibly being where you have to jump. So, yeah, it is possible that Washington's a little too far back. We'll see. But I think you can always look at some of the other premium positions. I think the one I had the Browns trading up. I forgot what happened yesterday, but I got the Browns trading up to get Ohio State offensive tackle Josh Simmons, who was probably viewed as like a higher first round pick, but he had a knee injury last year. And like if you're gonna, if you're a team like the Browns, if you're gonna, whether you take a quarterback at 2 or not, you got to shore up the main positions, and that one, or it could be a pass rusher. Those are the type of spots that teams could still be interested in. There's a lot of teams in this draft that have 10 or more picks, the Browns being one of them. And if this draft is not considered to be, particularly robust, and free agency wasn't either, it does kind of make some sense for teams to say, hey, we have all this draft capital, rather than bringing in 10, 11 guys, let's trade some of that, get the better players that we like, and go that way. So I think that's conceivable. And, lastly, look, Adam Peters, he's not great at, again, none of these guys are about giving too many specifics, but he just said flat out, look, if I could trade down every year, I would. And I don't think that's just him being flippant. I think that's the reality. So I think he's in. It's just a matter of,
right.
Does the board fall a certain way that they can take advantage of it?
100%. If every team wants to trade down, then it's kind of hard to trade down, because then no one wants to trade up. So you got to have a willing partner, and it's got to work out for you on the value side of it. And that is the challenge of it all, and that's why Adam Peters, amongst other reasons, paid a whole lot of money. Ben Standig, he gets paid not as much as Adam Peters, I presume. If you are Ben, I need to come work for The Athletic. But you do great work for the money that you make over there at The Athletic, where Ben is, of course, writing on everything Commanders, also doing a ton of mock draft work, and Ben's super plugged in on the agent side of things, so it's always really interesting to read his perspective this time of year. Ben, appreciate your time here on the radio, my friend, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you here sooner rather than later with the draft around the corner.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your guys' patience for having me on, and look forward to talking again.
Sounds good. Ben Standig, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, let's get you a little bit more from DQ at the coach's breakfast yesterday, and then coming up at 5:30, Ben's colleague, the great David Aldridge at The Athletic, wrote a really fascinating article about the current state of the NBA and why, while the players are more skilled and frankly better basketball players than ever, the game doesn't seem quite as healthy as you think that would mean. We'll dive into that at 5:30 here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, you're into this 808 hitting.
Sal. Yeah.
It's a good song. It's a good song. Coming up at 5:30, we'll talk about David Aldridge's article on the state of the NBA. Very, 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 very interesting. We'll get into that in a second. Anthony, I'm afraid that this leadership bite from Quinn is like 5 minutes long. Is that correct? The file size suggests that it's very. Here, I'm gonna hit play on it and make sure it's on. Yeah, no, it's 5 minutes and 14 seconds. That feels like a bad cut. I know you didn't cut this audio.
No. Good gracious. That is a long cut.
Which sucks because I would love to play that. Instead, we'll get you a little bit more of Dan Quinn on some things and more digestible bites, including Quinn talking about, I think, what is still the number one piece of or the number one complaint by Commanders fans this offseason. What are you going to do about the run defense? So Dan Quinn, what are you going to do about the run defense?
There's a lot of things that we want to get better at, and that's our expectation. So run defense was certainly part of that. I think you look at the full circle of it. You know, like what can we do better from a scheme standpoint? You know, how do we position the players in the right spots to do that better? And so we just want to take, you know, a different lens and a different view at everything. And what did we do well, and what do we need to work on? And so that's what a lot of the time in the off season is spent on, whether it's run defense or, you know, a certain part of, you know, all three phases. And we work really hard at that. So that's still an ongoing process. You know, looking at other teams as well. You know, who did things well, you know, who didn't. So we really take a deep dive on the things that need our most attention.
So this is what I think is like one of the more fascinating parts about this offseason for Washington and what happens for them moving forward. For the most part, I think they have, well, actually, let's go through it. Anthony, I'm enlisting your help here. Defensive end. Okay, we're not trying to say, are you great, right? But are you simply better than last year? Do you think their defensive end rotation is better now than it was last season?
Situationally, maybe. I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to the run game, we didn't have necessarily the best defensive end group. That's why we end up moving Deron Payne to the edge, you know, to help slow it down. Dante Fowler, he was one of the guys that, you know, was getting sacks, but in the run game was sort of kind of, you know, getting thrown out the way and things of that nature. So I think situationally we beefed up. We got guys that can, you know, defend the run because that was a huge problem last year. But in terms of rushing the passer,
I think you're probably worse.
Yeah.
Right? So I think overall they're better on the edge than they were last year. Again, that's not a very high bar. It's one of the weaknesses of the team. You've lost Dante Fowler, which means you've lost your best pass rusher. But Dietrich Wise is a massive upgrade in terms of first and second down play. Furl now goes back a roll. John Baptiste should not be forgotten about. He's in his second year. And Kinlaw is somewhere in that rotation, a guy that they're going to put on the end. And I think if he's given a specific role as that kind of player, like his good is really, really good. Like his good is elite. He doesn't produce it often enough to be an elite player. But like when he decides to put his face into somebody and run through them, he's a rhinoceros, bro. Like he's built different. And so if on third down, it's going to look very different than Fowler, and maybe he doesn't put up the sack totals, but if you just put him out there and you're like, hey, man, compress the pocket, there ain't a lot of dudes who can do what Javon Kinlaw can do in that way. So I'm going to say overall they are slightly better, acknowledging that they've taken a hit in terms of pass rush juice because Fowler was their best actual pass rusher. Interior, I think they're better than they were last year. And people can say they lost John Allen, and even if you're higher on John Allen than I am, John Allen didn't play most of the year last year. So that's not me trying to hate on John Allen. It's simply that Allen was hurt most of the year and didn't play a lot. So if Kinlaw, Payne, and Newton just play most of 2025, and Newton is better in year 2 than he was in year 1, especially since he's not going to, hopefully, he's starting the year healthy. Presuming that's the case, as opposed to missing all of the offseason last year as a rookie, like they're better on the interior. Not to mention guys like Eddie Goldman coming in, so they have some different body types, etc. So, and they brought back their depth guys, Sheldon Day, on down. And this is also a very deep defensive tackle class. They could add someone at any number of rounds. So do we agree they're better on the interior?
Yeah.
Okay, linebacker. Hopefully they're flat, because otherwise that means Bobby regressed. And as long as Bobby's Bobby and Frankie's Frankie, and then you add in whatever Dominique Hampton gives you, whatever Jordan McGee gives you, hopefully you're better this year than you were last year, because you've got a little more depth, a little more speed. And then the secondary, I do think that you can make an argument they took a step back, because Will Harris is probably not as good of a football player as Jeremy Chin. There's a chance he's not that much worse, and if Lattimore is better in year 2, and Sainer still makes a jump in year 2, and Jonathan Jones is better than Noah Igbenogany, and by the way, Noah's here is another depth piece, and does Percy Butler make a jump in year 2, Quan Martin make a jump in year 2 in the system, like, they could be better in the secondary, but if I'm being really harsh, like, they probably take some small step back personnel-wise because of the downgrade from Chin to Harris. Fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Especially if we're talking about playing the run. Because Chin was very good at that. And that it wasn't necessarily what I was talking about. But the idea that they're, like, so much worse than they were last year, I think is actually incorrect. I actually think they're overall better than they were last year. The question then becomes, like, what's that worth? Because they weren't that good last year, defensively, specifically against the run. And so but the thing is, like, the way they were bad was not down in, down out horrendousness. They just they couldn't stop giving up big runs. They'd be really, really good for 2.5 quarters and then give up, 2 runs of 20 yards. And you're like, well, there goes the average. There goes the cap you had on the game. So if being a little bit better means that the explosive plays shrink and you're just as consistent on the other downs, like, a little bit goes a long way. So is that the optimistic spin? Admittedly, yeah, but I am curious to see how that actually functionally plays out, and I don't think it's an outrageous, like, huge leap to say that they actually might have gotten better on defense, and then we'll see what that means to go from the 20s into or even the late 20s, or 27th or whatever they were, to 22nd or 18th. Like, what does that do overall to the defense?
Yeah, and I feel like in terms of the defense, if we limit those explosives and we force teams to do 10, 12, 13 play drives, then I think that'll fall more in our favor. So I think it also just speaks to a scheme thing. You limit those explosives, and that's what every team wants to do, limit the explosives. So the more we can do that, I think the better off we'll have, because it's not too many teams that's going to nickel and dime you the entire way down the field.
And by the way, the number one culprit of the big plays was probably St. Juice.
Yeah.
And he's gone. So if he can not, now Lattimore gave up his fair share in certain games, but if Juice is not holding on 3rd and 10 because he just has a meltdown mentally, and you're like, what are you doing, my guy? Mm-hmm. You were so good for so long, and now it's 3rd and 10, and you're on the opposite side of the play, and you grabbed a dude's face mask for what?
Or you let a guy run just right by you.
Yeah, or like, hey, it's 3rd and 10. They're probably gonna run straight. Yeah, if they can get that straightened out, then it would seem like the defense is in a better place. So just food for thought here on April 2nd. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. David Aldridge wrote a great column in The Athletic where he talked to a bunch of the NBA's best about the current state of the game. Why the players might be better than ever, but the game is struggling. And it really gets down to a fundamental question. What do we want from our sports? And what does this have to do with torpedo bats in baseball? I'll connect the dots next. Nats trying to rally in the top of the ninth. They got some runners on. In fact, now the winning run coming, or the potential leading run coming to the plate. 4-2. Top nine, I believe there are 2 outs up there in Toronto. So we'll see if the Nats come out to come back and at the very least fourth, bottom of the ninth, if not extra innings. Yeah, they got 2 on, 2 out with, let's see who's coming to the plate. Come on. Show me home plate. Well, we'll let you know what happens because they're taking too long. We're going to talk a little hoops now, though, and we'll keep you updated on the Nats game live here as we go. But the Hall of Famer David Aldridge wrote a terrific column in The Athletic, Anthony, as part of an ongoing series that publication is doing about issues in the NBA. They've written about some of the tanking issues, Wizards obviously included in part there. But this one was more general to kind of the state of play in the game. And I'm going to do my best here to do the Hall of Famer justice, Anthony. I'd just like to read the first part of this because the writing here is excellent. You ready for my my version of events here?
Yes, sir.
Stephen Curry processed what was happening and about to happen in about a tenth of a second. In his 1009th NBA game, the future Hall of Famer curled off a screen by Kevon Looney in the fourth quarter against the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, an event game in the world's most famous arena, as they like to say. Curry already had 25 points in 3+ quarters and had 4 3-pointers. In other words, a typical Steph-tacular night was brewing. And the Warriors were ahead late in the game when they ran an action to one side with Curry and Looney, who've been teammates for a decade. Curry took the dribble handoff from Looney just behind the three-point line. The Knicks, of course, sold out defensively, sending 3 players in Curry's direction. When you hear about the gravity that Curry's historic shooting prowess creates, this is what people are talking about. He tilts the floor because you can't let him beat you one last time with one last 3, because the night-night comes out afterward. The Knicks center, Mitchell Robinson, was in no man's land. If he didn't step up to Curry and challenge him, Curry would pull up for a long 2, or step back and launch from behind the arc. But Robinson also had to watch Looney rolling to the basket. Robinson made his choice. He took a half step towards Curry, just a half a step. That's all the space Curry needed. Curry then ended the game, not with a dagger 3, but with a pocket pass between Mikal Bridges and Robinson, hitting the rolling Looney in stride for a dunk. It was gorgeous, gorgeous basketball, observant in the institutional knowledge of all 5 players involved, had of their opponents and one another. Immediate, as Curry observed and processed and decided and executed a series of moves in a matter of moments, and efficient as Looney rolled and dunked one of the non-3-point shots that the advanced stats community cheers. It was a Tuesday night in the NBA. It was far from unique.
That's why he's one of the best.
And I can read. This article goes on to talk about how players like Victor Wembanyama, players like Kevin Durant, are wholly unique in NBA history. The basketball player has never, ever been better. We have guys that can do everything. And sure, it might look a little different than the 90s or the 80s, but there's nothing that Magic Johnson could do that LeBron James can't. And there are things that LeBron James can do that Magic Johnson could not. And some of that is just pure athleticism, but it's also the way the game has evolved. And you and I were talking about this before the show, and I think it's worth mentioning that if someone like a Magic Johnson had been born in the year 2000 as opposed to whenever Magic Johnson was born, like Magic Johnson would have come up watching this NBA and he would have evolved his game. There's no doubt that in any era, because of the adaptability, skill, IQ, it's resources available relative to the time, that Magic Johnson would have been one of the greatest NBA players ever. It just so happens that his game was cemented as what it was in that time because that's what the league was at that time. He was not trying to be the best basketball player in the history of the game. He was trying to be the best basketball player in 1984 or 1987 or whenever you want to pick in Magic's career. But if you were just to take that out of it and not say what those players are capable of and just time machine it, the basketball player, because each generation learns from the one before it, and the game evolves, like Trae Young exists because of Stephen Curry on down the list. And then there's guys like Steph who are truly rare innovators in the history of the sport. we know that this skill level is higher than ever. And I think the other part of it that's interesting is the analytics and the strategy. And really the strategy, which is then based on the analytics, because it took, for some reason, 30 years in the NBA for them to realize that 3 is more than 2. The sport has just so fundamentally changed strategically, and because of the ways that data science impacts the game now, has become far more homogenous in the style of play and the choices that these teams are making. And what I found so fascinating about this article was, Anthony, it kind of begs a question of, like, what do we actually want from our sports? Because I think if I were to tell a random sports fan, hey, I have for you, are you a basketball fan? Yes. 2, would you like to see the best basketball that can possibly be played, the most effective version played by the best players that have ever walked the planet? And they go, yeah, of course. And I go, the NBA. And they're like, no. Figuring out for the league, and just as a guy who talks about it and is interested in this, figuring out what that disconnect is the key to the whole thing. Like, what truly do we want out of our sports? And to draw the connection that I teased coming out of the last segment, this also has to do with the torpedo bats in baseball. Some people are like, this is fine. Some people are not, because some people are fine with the innovation, and some people just want baseball to be the thing that it's been since the 1900s, because that, in part, is the actual beauty of baseball, is that unlike a lot of other sports where you can't compare eras, this is a sport where you more or less can. The statistical stuff hasn't changed that much, and if there's something that's going to completely change the thing that we love about the sport, we actually don't want that thing to happen, because it then loses what is familiar and what we love in the first place. And I think that is a question that the NBA is really struggling with, because the game has so fundamentally, like the game of basketball has so fundamentally changed over the last decade and a half that it is unrecognizable to the people that grew up playing it if they're older than 25 years old.
Yeah, and I truly just don't understand why. I mean, even the people that analyze the game, the Charles Barkleys of the world, the Shaqs of the world, I think Kenny, to an extent, respects the game a little bit more than, some of the older guys. But their job is to, analyze the game. And sometimes it just comes off as, them hating the game. And sometimes what they say or, like, what they project influences, like, how other people perceive, the NBA. So it's literally like I don't know the metaphor for it, but it's tough for, I guess, the older crowds that, tune into that show and then, look at what we actually is out there on the NBA courts and go from there. So I don't know. It's a tough cycle, but I'm, a millennial. I'm a younger guy. I grew up watching and, allowing or just appreciating the NBA evolving. So I'm, used to it. I understand it. And it just, takes people to come down, have some humility, and understand that the game is going to freaking evolve.
And the thing is, it's like, that's life.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more you understand how frustrating that can be at times. But you then have to check yourself and just be like, is this, and that's not to say that everything that is new is better. And I think that is actually the fundamental question here is, like, the players are better. The game is being played in a more efficient, effective way based off of all available data.
Mm-hmm.
But it is actually, like, at the core, the reason it's $1 billion industry is not because of the basketball and its effectiveness. It's because it's entertaining. And so what is the responsibility of the league to put on an entertainment product? And I think Major League Baseball, to its credit, did some of this a couple of years ago. Like, this is referenced in David's piece of they looked at these games getting way out of hand in terms of time. They saw stolen base numbers plummet, which is one of the most exciting plays in the sport. And they saw batting averages die because everyone, like, the shift was so popular. And it was so easy to predict because they had all this incredibly sophisticated, and these numbers aren't even that sophisticated, but data to say, like, these guys pull an insane amount. We can run the numbers on this. And in a lot of ways, like, as a fan of Formula One, I think one of the things that you have to fundamentally understand about Formula One is it's not a race car contest. It's an engineering contest, right? There's a reason why there are long stretches of dominance in that sport, because someone figures out something with the car. And while, yes, Max Verstappen is probably currently, as much as it pains to say me, the best driver on the planet, he's got someone else in the other car, in another car on his team that is driving the exact same car and is finishing at the bottom of the field. Like, there's a whole thing in Formula One right now because Liam Lawson, the other Red Bull driver, just got demoted after 2 races because they're like, this dude can't drive this car. And they're promoting Yuki Tsunoda this weekend in Japan. But, like, that's the stark difference of, like, Max Verstappen is the master at that car, and when it's driven that way, it's one of the best cars on the grid. But Formula One is by nature an engineering contest. And that's why I think the torpedo bat thing is interesting, and why the current NBA discourse is interesting, is because I don't think baseball fans nor basketball fans want an engineering contest. They don't want you to look at this data and be like, oh, it's best to shoot the corner 3. They want to see the game as designed. Hey, the whole point is not to shoot a bunch of threes. The whole point, as the game was initially designed, the core, the essence of basketball is player movement, get ball close to basket, put ball in basket. And that third step of get ball close to basket is now completely obliterated because they put a line out there and then said, hey, that shot is worth more. And it took 30 years, but once people figured out just how valuable that extra point per shot was, it completely changed the game. And I think the same thing is true in baseball. People don't necessarily want to see the torpedo bat because it's different. It's not to say that it wasn't a genius idea by the Yankees, but no one goes to a baseball game to see an engineering contest. I don't want to see if you can design a defense or a bat to better win games. I want to see the players perform better. And I think that's the beauty of what is kind of captured here. It's not the point of David's article, but it's the thing that I came away thinking about is, like, truly, what do we want from our sports? And I think in a sport like Formula One, we want an engineering competition. And we want to see if the teams can figure out how to get that extra 10th off per lap and become competitive, and can they make the adjustments, and can the drivers handle it, and the drama that goes in that sport. In basically every other sport, we want to see the athletes perform, and we want the athletes to decide it. And I think that's kind of what's happening on some level in the NBA is people feel like the game has been taken over by something other than who's the best player on the floor. And there's other issues with the league for sure, but I think the nerdiness of the NBA has probably diminished the interest in the product. And I don't know what to do about that in the NBA because it's not the answer can't be to just start hiring dumb people. But I think the answer has to be somewhere in line with what baseball has done of how do we recapture what people love about the game and outlaw some of the stuff that, whether that's making a dunk worth 3 points, because imagine how that changes the game. You want to reorient the geography and the geometry of the game? Make a dunk worth 3. Make even a layup inside the restricted area worth 3. Now all of a sudden you have incentive to get there. So like these are the things that I wonder if they're thinking about, and they definitely are thinking about, but what those rule changes are, I don't know.
Nah, I mean, what you propose would be definitely lit. Definitely pushing people more towards the basket. I forgot who we had on, but you guys were discussing that as well, and
yeah,
it's a hell of an idea.
And if you catch a body, it's an extra point.
Yeah,
just incentivize Anthony Edwards trying to just basketball murder someone. By the way, you see his quote last night?
Which one?
So last night, if you missed it, double
best
overtime. It's one of the best basketball games ever. He's like, Nikola Jokic, man, that might be the best player in the world outside of me.
Yeah.
Perfectly Anthony Edwards in the worst way. Anyway, if you got thoughts on that, give us a call. 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, and we're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Figuring out some stuff here behind the scenes. Anthony, we haven't had a chance to talk about our weekends yet. So before we get to Dave Johnson, and I want to talk to Dave about this article that DA wrote as well. I'm still a little sore from High Rocks this weekend. The good news is that we did well. Although I was kind of the time on the clock, the stopwatch. They say the stopwatch doesn't lie. The stopwatch doesn't lie, but like the course changed dramatically from this year to last year, and so in case you don't know, High Rocks is a fitness race where there's 8 different stations, and then you run 1,000 meters before each one. And let me tell you, running 8K and doing all the stuff I did with my legs, but running the 8K on concrete, that didn't feel very good. So my legs are still pretty sore from that. But like the transition area between the zones was significantly longer this year. So every single time that I have is better than last year, but my total time is not that much better because they just made the course longer. So that's annoying.
I mean, this was your second?
My second one.
I mean, the thing is, slight improvement, and I just feel like you'll have another shot at it, man.
Here's the thing. It was fun. I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm deciding whether or not I will have another shot at it.
Oh.
This might have been my... I can't be running on concrete, bro.
Now, I feel you, but I feel like if you wanted did you get the time that you wanted, like kind of thing, that you envisioned for
that's
yourself?
the weird thing. Yes and no. All the individual stations and the running, like I was in the ranges I wanted to be in. I didn't account for the fact that the course was going to be significant. Like, I did the math. Like, last year, we finished in, like, 119 something. This year, it was, like, 118.50. And last year, in the transition area, it was, like, 4.5 minutes. This year, it was 8. And it wasn't because we were slower. It was because it was significantly larger. So
I'll
like
take it as
on the station, if you put up like ski erg, last year ski erg, this year rows, you look at all 8 runs, better this year than last year, except for the course layout. And I guess like, you know, it'd be the difference in like running a marathon or a half marathon, and one course is slightly downhill and one's uphill, but at least they're all 13.1 miles or 26.2 miles. No. This year, we got arbitrary. It's like, oh, you have to take detours that don't count as part of the course.
Well, I view it as a success.
Yeah. I'll tell you the biggest
For what it's
success.
worth.
I am not as sore as I was last year. Like, I'm sore. My muscles feel like they worked. My lower legs are like, ouchie. That was concrete that you ran all that mileage on. But last year I felt like I couldn't walk. This year I'm walking, and have been since Sunday night. Sunday night after I ran, because I ran, the start time was like 5:20 for us, and I was pretty tired afterwards, conked out real good. But all in all, like, the damage was not as bad this year.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope it wasn't. You know what you needed to do to prepare.
Yeah,
you did that. You ate right.
Yeah,
you ran right.
Still got to figure that
prep
part
right.
out. The nutrition part was better, but it's also the late start was definitely hard. Yeah. But man, you just feel when your heart rate. My heart rate was in zone 5 for over 30 minutes, and was in zone 4 for another 30. So basically, an hour, my heart rate was at like 170 or higher. And there's only so good you're gonna feel during that.
Yeah,
I think that's what I'm learning is it ain't actually the nutrition. It's the intensity that just hurts. The old pain cave.
I feel for you, man.
I was in the pain cave. But I've emerged on the other side. And
So
now I talk about sports on the radio.
If I was ever to sign up for this race,
yeah,
would you do it with me?
Oh.
Just say no, Craig, because I don't want to do it.
No.
All right, good.
That would be pretty. We should find some. We should.
No.
Okay, fine. We still got to run 40s.
We do.
But it's starting to get nice out.
Real nice.
I got to get my legs back underneath me, though. We can't be doing.
My flag football season is starting too. I'm ready, Craig.
I run like a 6'2" right now. and then fall down afterwards.
I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of slow.
Yeah, well, it's because my legs hurt.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm actually 6'2" slow. Put some respect on my name.
About to say you back there with Linnell.
Dave Johnson's next. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. And it is time to bring in from the broadcast booth at Capital One Arena, the one, the only, Dave Johnson.
Kismet open for three. It's there.
Time to get the radio party started.
Feeds now the right block of Alsar. Slam.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Block by Coulibaly. Left wing George. 3 on the clock for three. It's there. Feel like busting loose. Busting loose. Crossover step back three. Oh. Jordan Poole. You are cool. Feel like busting loose. Busting loose now.
On the Hoffman Show.
Dave with us for the first night of a back-to-back. Dave, how we doing?
Doing well. We've got the Kings in town. We're going to see Jonas Valanciunas, who, of course, used to be a part of the Wizards, and we had a great time with him this season. And, you know, the other night, Jordan Poole, that was significant. The single-season mark for three-pointers made, and now he's about to surpass Davis Bertans on ninth in franchise history for three-pointers. But significant when you think about Jordan Poole's journey at the start of last season. He comes over having won a championship, you know, playing with Steph and Clay and with the Golden State Warriors. And he was really playing out of position for the first half of last season. And, you know, quite frankly, fans are saying, wait a minute, this is not what we expected from Jordan Poole. They got him in a more comfortable spot the second half of the season, post-All-Star break. And he really started to show, yeah, that's the Jordan Poole that we wanted from Golden State, that he wanted. And it's just continued into this season. And to get that kind of mark, it's a lot of hard work, because you also have to consider, with the Wizards, Jordan Poole is definitely at the top of every opponent's scouting report, and he still accomplished that.
No doubt about it, and he was awesome the other night. Unfortunately, offensively, didn't get a whole lot of help. Sometimes that is how that goes. And Dave, I do, you know, we can talk about the game more in a second, but especially since we have a back-to-back and we can talk some more Wizard stuff generally over the next 2 days. I did want to ask you, by chance, did you read David Aldridge's column in The Athletic earlier in the week on kind of the current state of the NBA?
You know, I did not, and I'm embarrassed to say that, but because I'm an Athletic subscriber and I love David Aldridge, but I somehow missed that one.
Okay, so one, I will send you the link because I think you'll enjoy it. But I will tell you the basic premise, and I'm curious as someone who has been calling NBA games for 30 years, like your take on it, if you will. But basically the premise is that basketball players now are more talented than they've ever been. The growth and evolution of the game is what it is. Guys like Durant, guys like Wembanyama, these 7-footers that are so skilled, and players of all sizes have more just basketball skill than ever. They've obviously, there's been a ton of growth in strategy and things based off analytics and anything else that you want to throw in there. And yet the game is having all these problems in terms of popularity, where it seems like maybe something has been lost along the way. That's the basic premise. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, and that idea that, like, what is that thing that is being lost? And I know you sit at the center of people who love the game, because people that are still choosing to go and consume it are obviously the ones that are consuming the work that you do. But I'm curious, you know, as someone who's had the seat you've had for 30 years, how you've seen the game evolve, and some things that you maybe really love about the modern game, and some things that at times you're like, ooh, the nostalgia of that still would be appealing if I saw that more often.
Well, you know, that's an interesting question, and you know, basketball by its nature and the skill set it requires, whether footwork, and that's why I always say that soccer is a great complement if you want to be a good basketball player. You know, we talked about why Steve Nash was such a great point guard. Well, that was his soccer footwork. So it's the complete athletic skill set. And I remember my uncle in the 70s talking about, you know, I love the NBA because I'm seeing the greatest athletes. You know, they need to have speed or you know, the size, strength. You can go right down the list. So that's part of what I think attracts people to the game. There's also there's a mixture of physicality. No, it's not as physical as football and hockey, but believe me, there's a physical nature to basketball, yet there's a stylish elegance to basketball as well. The evolution of the game in terms of the skill set, what players can do, I think is just, you know, when you consider basketball, especially on the professional level of all the sports in this country, it is relatively young. I mean, hockey history goes back to the 20s. Baseball, my goodness sakes, didn't they bring it over in the Mayflower or whatever? So it goes way back. Whereas, basketball into the late 60s, the NBA was still a 14-team league, and they were still trying to find cities that were going to support professional basketball. So then you're talking about a 60-year window. I know this is a long-winded answer, and I'm kind of, skating around the question, but I'm also, some of the pillars to what my answer is going to be on this. I think you enjoy the moment of every game in basketball. And what I mean is, there's been times when it's been more physical. There was times when, people say, well, boy, I wish there wasn't the three-pointer, and you went back to post play. I don't, subscribe to that. I think there is still a mixture. Just when you think that something is extinct, it comes back again. I think, the big challenge, and I think it's not so much the game or the skills, because these athletes, I think, quite frankly, in all sports are going to continue to get better because, my goodness gracious, the stuff that's from sleep to diet to, you could make a long list of how they're supported. And that was not the way in the 70s, 80s, and maybe even to the 90s. I mean, there was commercial flights and, the old football, take a salt tablet, right? At training camp as you sweat like crazy. So it's because the athletes are in better condition and are better cared for. I think they're able to deliver a better product on a consistent basis. The big challenge, I think, for the NBA is, and I don't know how you fix this. It is a sport where there is a shot clock, which you do need a shot clock. But because of that, you don't have the situation like with the hockey playoffs, where maybe this team was we know it certainly here in Washington. You can be the President's Cup winner and win the regular season, and not do well in the playoffs. The NFL is part of the marketability of the NFL, and this goes back to Pete Rozelle and his vision and how they've made a competitive balance, and they made that competitive balance because they share the television rights. This goes back to the Tisch family and the Giants. They could have argued, well, we're in New York, we should get more of the television money. Instead, Buffalo and Green Bay has just as much a chance as New York is in Chicago. So because of that competitive balance, it is any given Sunday. You don't know from one year to the next. I understand the Chiefs and Eagles are having their period of time, but you know what I'm saying. Really, in the NFL, somebody can, who knows? The Commanders could have surprised somebody and gotten to the Super Bowl this year. So I think that's the issue that, is a problem with the NBA, where I don't know if problem's the word, but it's a reality. If you're going to get better, you need to bottom out and start like the Wizards are from scratch, if you will, which is, not unlike, what maybe the Orioles did, or did, not maybe, did. They went with young talent, and now they're seeing the benefits of that. So, it's a little bit different because of the nature and the importance of the draft. But you do have a situation, I feel in the NBA, I think the NBA wishes that that at the start of the season, more teams really felt like they had a chance at the title.
I think that's 100% true, and I think some of that is the general nature of basketball. 5 players on the floor, a guy like a LeBron James or a Stephen Curry can have such an outsized impact. But I think there's also stuff, and the article, Dave, will be in your inbox as soon as we get done here, so that you can read it at your leisure. But I think some of the things that Dave points out in the column that it's worth reading for anybody who's a basketball fan is the stuff that is controlled by the league. Everything from the relative practice to play ratios to any rule changes they can make, and it's just a really fascinating thought experiment. But tonight, Dave, you get the current NBA. You get the Wizards and you get the Kings. We never know what's going to happen. Could be fun. Jordan Poole pursuing all those records you mentioned earlier, moving up the all-time three-point list in Wizards franchise history. history. Young guys getting more minutes. It'll be a lot of fun. And then I'll have to swing by and say hi tomorrow. We'll be in the building tomorrow. So we'll talk more about the how tonight goes and preview tomorrow's game tomorrow, Dave.
All right, and make sure you wear your Harry Potter costume because tomorrow night is a Harry Potter night here.
Yes, we'll get everything sorted. That was a pun.
And I said, well, and you say that, it goes over my head because I never saw Harry Potter and I never saw Star Wars. So that's just how culturally inept I am.
I'm not all the way with you, but I'm also not all the way not with you. And I think that's where we're going to leave that, Dave.
All right.
We'll talk to you tomorrow, bud. Thank
See
you.
you. Thanks.
Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, what a night it was, by the way. You can complain about the NBA all you want. Not last night. What Joker did, what Steph Curry did, what Giannis did, and where are we sitting with about a week to go in the NBA's regular season? We'll buzz you through where the standings are and some of the things you should know next here on the Team 980. But first, the latest in the world of women's sports presented to you by Wawa. Chicken how you want it at Wawa with customizable roasted or crispy chicken sandwiches. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 25 minutes away from Wizards pregame here on the Team 980. Wizards and Caps both in action tonight. Zardo's here on the Team 980. Wayne Gretzky just 4 goals away from Alex Ovechkin just 4 goals away from Anthony. I'm gonna try that a third time. Remember earlier in the show when I beautifully read David Aldridge's prose?
You did indeed.
Yeah. Now I can't even speak my own words. Alex Ovechkin is 4 goals from Wayne Gretzky. That's it. That's all I have to say. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. NBA last night, Anthony, was bananas. Just some of the greatest individual performances you will ever see. Steph Curry lost his mind. Nikola Jokic lost his mind. Steph's team won. Jokic's lost. But before we get to all of that, the Eastern Conference, the 10 teams that will be competing in the postseason are set, Anthony. With the Raptors' loss last night, the Bulls have now clinched themselves a play-in spot. They have clinched it along with Miami, Atlanta, and Orlando. Currently, those are the teams. Orlando and Atlanta, and I think Miami, the way I'm reading the standings, can all, if they win out and Milwaukee loses out, any one of them could wind up surpassing the Bucks. The Bulls, I believe, the highest they can climb is 7th. But the Eastern Conference 10 teams that will be competing once the regular season ends are the Cavs, who have a 4-game lead on Boston for the 1 seed. The Celtics, who have then an 8-game lead on the Knicks for the 2 seed. The Knicks, the Pacers, and there's a huge gap, by the way, between, again, 2 and 3. There's also a 4-game gap between 3 and 4, Knicks and Pacers. And the Knicks have been able to maintain that, even with Jalen Brunson missing the better part of the last month. The Pistons are the 5 seed as Cade Cunningham has exploded to become one of the best players in the league this season. The Bucks, who, by the way, had the best shooting game in a quarter century last night. They couldn't miss. They're sitting in 6th place safely in the playoffs. And then you'd have Magic, Hawks, Heat, and Bulls in the play-in. You got all that?
Yep.
All right. By the way, the Wizards, 3 games clear of Charlotte for the worst record in the East. They are in a virtual tie. They've played 1 less game than Utah. But Utah plays tonight as well. But the Wizards and Jazz currently both sitting on 16 wins for the worst lottery odds. The Pelicans, the only other team in the West that's been eliminated, they are far clear of getting in that mix. They've won 21 games, even though they've now shut down Zion Williamson and C.J. McCollum for the rest of the season. In the Western Conference, though, the Spurs are basically tanking at this point because they don't have Wemby or De'Aaron Fox for the rest of the year. Portland has played really well since about New Year's Day. And by the way, still happening, Anthony. Anytime Denny Advia has a good game, people find the reel of me saying that he's overrated by Wizards fans, something that is still true based off of the trade last year. But he had 35 and 15 last night. Denny's having a great year.
He's been eating. He has.
They still got 2 first-round picks for a guy that before this season had never averaged 15 points a game.
Yeah.
You tell me how that's going. And by the way, Bub Carrington's numbers are creeping closer to Denny's by the day. Maybe Denny crawled away a little bit yesterday, but Bub Carrington's numbers are pretty darn good for a kid who's 19. Anyway, I need to have that argument with Blazers fans now because none of them are listening. But the Blazers, they're trying to sneak into the play-in. They're sitting at 33 and 43. The Suns, yes, the Suns, the team with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, are currently in 11th. 11th.
KD's hurt.
I know he is. So is Beal. Shocker. But they're in 11th. A team that had legitimate championship aspirations is sitting in 11th. They are a game and a half behind Sacramento, who is here tonight to take on the Wizards. Sacramento's at 10, Dallas at 9, the Clippers at 8. The Timberwolves are at 7 after they absolutely stole one from the Denver Nuggets last night. Double overtime. Nikola Jokic had 61 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. A 60-point triple-double. And this game comes down to, in double overtime, Russell Westbrook smoking a layup when he could have dribbled out the clock and then committing a foul on a 3-point shooter as time expired. Free throw shooter hits 2 out of 3. the 1-point lead becomes a 1-point deficit, that's your ball game.
And to make matters worse, the Nuggets had a 10-point lead in the fourth and squandered it and lost in double OT. Crazy. I'm not going to lie, Craig. That was one of the craziest games you'll see.
I woke up this morning and obviously saw it because I wasn't staying. That was the late game last night, but
yeah,
I was just like, wait, I'm sorry, what happened?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Meanwhile, the 4-5 matchup currently, if the playoffs started today, would be, Anthony, Lakers-Warriors. The Warriors, who have been unbelievable since they traded for Jimmy Butler at the deadline, and of course the Lakers, who are still getting it on track with Luka Doncic, but have been pretty darn good since that trade, even though they kind of view themselves as one piece away. Man, the Warriors are, with Butler, I think they're 12-2. With the starting lineup that they've been using recently, they're undefeated. Like, that Warriors team, and especially with, Steph last night, 52 points. He had 11 threes through 3 quarters as they beat the Grizzlies. It pulled away late. He's 37, man. Like, I know we say this stuff about LeBron all the time, and LeBron deserves it. I'm not trying to take anything away from LeBron. The point is, this is not supposed to happen ever, and we got 2 guys doing it. LeBron's 40, Steph is 37, and he played 37 minutes last night, scored 52 points, and by the way, had 8 rebounds and 10 assists to boot.
I think it's scarier for Steph just because the last thing that will go in an NBA player's game is his shot. And the fact that he is the greatest shooter ever should put fear in everybody because he's still a threat when he crosses half court.
Remember, this was the point in his career. The Warriors tried the 2 timeline thing, right?
Yep.
With Kuminga, and it was supposed to be James Wiseman and all those guys. And Steph was just supposed to be a role player that was able to just, space the floor and shoot. And instead, he's still the centerpiece of that offense and is playing out of his bleeping mind. Butler was also great last night. Draymond had a triple-double. They're nasty, man. And your Lakers are still, they're more inconsistent, but, they're not a bad team either. The West playoffs are going to be great this year.
Dude, so the Lakers own the tiebreaker over the Nuggets. What I'm praying for, Craig, is the Thunder to be the 1 seed, the Rockets to be the 2 seed, the Lakers to be the 3, and the Nuggets to be the 4. I need the Nuggets to have the toughest road to the Western Conference Finals because you'll have to play the Warriors in the first round, then the Thunder in the second round, and then the Lakers or the Rockets in the third round. That would be insane.
Oh, and by the way, Oklahoma City is having one of the greatest regular seasons any NBA team has ever had.
Yeah.
They've won 10 in a row. They're 63-12. Their point differential, Anthony, is 13.3.
Yeah.
They are winning. The average game ends with them winning by 13 points. That's not their average winning percentage. That includes the 12 games they've lost. Their point differential is an average of 13.3 per night. Typically, if you have a double-digit average, you are the NBA champion.
And they've only lost to one Eastern Conference team, just one. They've beaten everybody else. They lost to the Cavs, and that's the best, record against a single conference.
Who, by the way,
1970 since they made the conferences.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
By the way, the Cavs also plus 10.0 on the dot at kind of that double-digit point differential threshold. Last night, it took Chicago having a 43-point fourth quarter against OKC's backups to make this game if you want to call 145-117 respectable.
God,
they put belt to ass for the first 3 quarters.
Oh, my goodness.
I remember seeing that score being like, I'm sorry, it's what now?
Yeah,
Shea played 27 minutes, had 27 points, 12 assists, 2 blocks. He had no rebounds, though, slacker.
The Bulls put up 43 in the fourth, and they still lost by 28?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Because they only had 40 at halftime.
Well, that explains it.
18 plus 22 is 40, right?
Yeah.
That means the Thunder scored 45 in the second quarter.
Dude, this year's playoffs
and they gave
crazy.
up 40 in the first half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, NBA playoffs, they're around the corner. Wizards will not be taking part. The Wizards will be playing the Kings, who are trying to take part, in about half an hour. pregames in 15 minutes, which means we got to take our final break and come back with real things real people said in real microphones. Wrapping up here on the Hoffman Show, here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too, at the Team 980. Appreciate everyone checking us out there. Had some fun with some NBA today, some NFL today. We've been a bit all over the place. But tomorrow, what do we have, Anthony? Looking at the rundown. Looks pretty blank.
We have never read the comments.
We got that at 5:30. What else we got tomorrow?
It's a great question, Craig.
If anybody in the sports world wants to do anything, tomorrow seems to be your day. Friday also seems like it could be your day. Who knows? Maybe Ovi scores a hat trick tonight, and he's on the verge of breaking the record by Friday.
That would be insane.
We can definitely do some of that on Friday.
Yeah.
Frankly, if he scores tonight and he's within range, we'll probably talk about that on Friday. Well, I guess we're getting close to Final Four.
Final Four is getting close.
So we can try to do some preview
because
of
the
that.
games are on Friday. They start Friday. The women's anyway.
Oh, yeah, the women's games are on Friday. It's so weird. It's so dumb how they do that, right?
Because the women just played on Monday, and now they're going to play on Friday.
Right. It used to not be like that. It used to, like the women's championship game used to be on Tuesday. And then they wanted to make the women's championship on Sunday, which is way better for TV. Perfectly fine with that decision.
Yeah.
But then just make their tournament start sooner the whole time. Make it a Wednesday, Friday, it'll be a Wednesday, Friday, Thursday, Saturday tournament. And the men can have Sunday to themselves versus what it is now where the women start on Friday. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday for the first 2 weekends, and then we switch it in the last weekend.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's super weird. I mean,
I mean, I guess at this point, everybody gets their own day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Monday to Friday is not that crazy of a turnaround within the context of a college basketball season. I think the difference is, though, it's like the travel. Like, you got teams that are going Spokane to Tampa.
Yeah.
And might want to be able to go home first. Because they got all the media. That's just not a lot of time. And especially for the most important games of your season. Weird. Add it to the list of ways that the NCAA has clearly foobarred the women's tournament over the years. At least they have a real weight room now. Remember that whole fiasco a couple years ago?
Yeah, that was bad stuff.
Yeah, and then they were like, oh, you guys can also use the March Madness moniker. Idiots. 2 years later, the women's game outgrows the final, or out audiences the men's final. And it's like, hey, maybe we should not treat this like a second-class product, and we can have 2 first-class products. Is that what you have? It's not about putting down the men's game. It's realizing you got 2 first-class products and not messing it up. So there's that. But, yeah, we got the women's games on Friday. But tomorrow, a lot of blank space in the rundown.
Take a man?
Yeah, we're going to have a draft analyst named Jeremy Green on. Logan loves the guy. Said he's really funny on top of being really smart.
Yeah.
He's a Southern guy from South Carolina somewhere, so he and I are going to have to do a little South Carolina talk before we get started.
Yeah. Mock draft?
Oh, we do typically do mock drafts on Thursday.
Mock drafts.
And are you writing this stuff down? We should put this in. We got the document open right here. Take command. We got mock drafts. I was looking at who put theirs. Oh, Lance Zerline put out his latest one today.
Phil Yates did too.
Field put out one. So we got some mock drafts to look at. You want to know what? This rundown's coming together. What a show we're gonna have for you tomorrow. As for right now, we got a bunch of things in the folder. So let's get right to it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Real things.
We're not gonna be so this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Set into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Helps if I do the alrighty then when the microphone's back on. That's a professional job out of me. Our good friend Damon Amendolara, he's good for some journalism, Anthony. And by journalism, I mean air quotes, journalism. Damon, perhaps most famous on this show for our dumpling discourse.
Yes, sir.
So this is appropriate. Food related. He had this conversation with UNLV head basketball coach Josh Pastner.
I have heard that, like me, you are a passionate fan of white rice. I love white rice. Are you with me on this, March?
I love rice in general, whether it's white rice, chicken fried rice. I swear to you not, this is a funny story. 2 weeks ago, I'm at ESPN during championship week. One of the things was a pan of rice. I must have got 6 servings filling my plate up. It was just white rice, nothing else on it, just the white rice. So I ate 2 plates, and I wanted to go back for a third. I did, and then I figured people are looking at me, so I took and went around the corner.
That is incredible. But you're telling me that you don't only use it as a side to dip stuff in or put the stuff on. That could be the meal. Like, you went up for just 3 bowls of plain white rice, and that was your meal.
That was my meal. Listen, I mean, I am a rice guy.
Anthony, do you like rice that much?
No. 6 bowls? 6 servings? Of white rice? Nah,
Most white people think I've ever heard in my life.
Oh my gosh. Like, where's the sauce? Or like, this, you gotta compliment it with something. I don't know. I can't just eat white rice.
Like, I can eat white rice as a side dish, right? As if you have some, like, I'll use a Chinese food, right? You have something with a good sauce on it, and then you kind of use it as an in-between to get to your next dish.
Yeah.
Or you can obviously put sauce or chicken with stuff or whatever on the rice.
Yeah.
So it can be used as a base layer. It can be used as a transition layer, kind of palate cleanser. And rice, if you do it right with some oil, a little salt, whatever, you can have enough flavor on it that you don't got to do too much to it. But just to be like, I'm just going to eat plain white rice.
It's weird.
It's aggressive. Unrelated. this weekend, Ashley Hatch, Washington Spirit, scored 2 goals in less than 3 minutes, moving her into 5th all-time on the not the Spirit, the NWSL, the league's all-time scoring list. Her celebration made the rounds, and apparently it was designed by her teammate, Esme Morgan, a defender who did not give her much say in the matter.
So today I was like, oh my gosh, Trin, I've got an idea for a celebration. Whoever scores should do a catwalk. And she was like, wait, that could be good. So then we were spreading the word around the dressing room. And we very specifically told Hatchie, actually. So I think we manifested that she was going to score because, yeah, we were like convincing her. And she was like, I don't know. And I just like grabbed her hand and shook it so she was in. She didn't really have much choice in the matter. But I'm glad she was up for it when the time came along.
3 things. 1, Esme Morgan, phenomenal storyteller. I've had her on our show, and I've heard her on other shows, and there, Esme Morgan, excellent storyteller. 2, Ashley Hatch is someone I consider a personal friend, and also someone we talked to on the show last week. By the way, Anthony, the streak might be back.
Uh-oh.
Remember last year we had like 5 or 6 players in a row that came on and then scored?
Yep.
Hatchie's on. Hatchie scored.
Oh, uh-oh.
I'm just saying, Sam, at Spirit PR, if you're listening, I need someone on the show who wants to score a goal. We got to put this theory to the test. But Ashley she just pumps her fists and keeps moving. Doing a dance type of thing, not her pretending like, oh, look at me, I'm the center. Not the way she rolls. But thing number 3, Anthony, she crushed it. She got in on the celebration, and it was extra perfect because like she did it after the goal where she pulled into 5th place all time. So
yeah, that's dope.
Even though it would apparently have been anybody who scored was going to do that, the fact that she got that moment where her teammates were like, "Look at Ashley, A+. Excellent work all around." We need more coordinated celebrations in other sports.
I mean,
like what could Ovi do after he scores?
I don't know.
They just all go to the glass and dap people on the head.
When he breaks the record, what is he going to do? Just
I think he should.
Fist bump?
Here's what he should do. Remember when he jumped in the fountains?
Yeah.
He should pretend like he's jumping in the fountains. Although that might kind of hurt to land on some ice.
I think that's going to hurt.
And plus, he's not hammered this time. That's our show. We'll see you tomorrow.